On Tech News today, we have more crazy news from Google I/O Fabric, smart fabric that you can feel and touch and gesture to control your smartphone and devices. Plus, we have Christina Warren, Owen Williams, and Russell Hawley to talk all about Android and Google Photos and GIFs in Facebook. All that and more on Tech News today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Okay. This is Tech News Today for Friday, May 29th, 2015. Tech News Today is the show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. I am Megan Morrone, filling in for Mike Elgin, who is covering the Google I/O conference in San Francisco this week. Our co-anchor today is Christina Warren. Welcome, Christina.
Hey, Megan. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. I've been following Google I/O from New York, and it looks like it's a good time. So I'm glad we'll get to talk about some of the news that's come out today on Tech News Today.
Yeah, I was talking to Ron Richards yesterday about it, and he's an Android guy, and he said, this is my Christmas. This is when I feel like I really matter. So yeah, let's get right to our top story. We've been, of course, covering the Google Developers Conference all this week. If you want to watch Leo's commentary on the keynote, you can download that Twit Live special at twit.tv. And just as I said last night, Ron Richards and I gave a little bit of a shorter version, a little recap, and that's at Tech News Tonight, twit.tv/TN2. Now, Google has been hinting at a project that will literally blow our socks off. This morning they delivered, although it wasn't smart socks, as I had hoped. They introduced some kind of conductive materials to help us make gestures to control our devices. It's kind of like Minority Report meets smart clothes. Joining us also today is Russell Hawley from Android Central. Welcome, Russell.
I guess this stuff could technically work for your socks, though.
It could.
Like not actually removing them, but there's no reason it couldn't apply to socks at some point.
Yes, my toes, I'm very dexterous with my toes. I can push buttons. No one knows I'm responding to a text. I might be doing that right now. Who knows? So what did you guys think about this announcement today?
I thought the most interesting part was, and this is maybe a little more technical than it needed to be, was the actual explanation of how they created the fibers. Because it's really just a way smaller scale version of, tech that was out there already, which was wrapping, essentially copper filaments in strands. But it happens so small in this scale that they're able to make what looks like, colorful fiber, but it's actually casing that's not wholly different from things like Ethernet cables.
Right. And what were your initial thoughts, Christina?
No, I mean, again, I'm with Russell. I think it's really cool, and I think the technology of how they actually are doing these fibers is really fascinating. I've been really fascinated and kind of obsessed. Haven't been as obsessed recently, but with the whole idea of kind of electronic clothing and the fact that we are kind of having this great intersection of fashion and tech. And so, from a technical level, I'm really impressed. What I'm I guess more hesitant about is about how are we actually going to move these into fashionable objects that can be actually useful and not just, shown off in a demo.
Right. And of course, so there were two projects that there are a lot of things they talked about, but the two projects we're talking about, Project Solely was what they first talked about, which was how you would create gestures to control our devices. So they talked about, just the way our fingers move, and then, sort of like Minority Report, but closer, like instead of, like on the Apple Watch, turning the digital crown, it would just be, you wouldn't even need the crown, you just turn. And then Project Jacquard was the materials part of the jacket. And then, of course, they introduced a partnership with Levi, which, coming from the Bay Area, that was really fascinating to me. They're a great company. So, yeah, but I think you're right, Christina. It's, are they actually going to, when are we going to see it? So that's the big question, which I don't think any of us can really answer.
Right. No, exactly. But I was you too. Like I kind of wanted like some sort of sock wearable or shoes. I was even thinking, I was like, oh, maybe instead of having a smart sock, maybe they'll do something with shoes. But the Levi partnership, that's actually really big. And Levi has historically had really strong ties to tech, and they've been really innovative in terms of their fabrics and in terms of even building in, sensors and pockets and other things for devices. So I think that's a great partnership, because when it comes to clothing companies, they're certainly one of the companies that is a lot more willing to experiment and take risks.
Right. I know, Russell, you tweeted yesterday a funny tweet about how a lot of tech bloggers who don't really code were kind of complaining about how the conference was boring. And what's been exciting so far for you about the things they've announced at Google I/O?
I think the most impressive thing about the event really has been, the whole theme has been, local problems. Google's always kind of really future focused, and I thought that a lot of the things that we saw, even during the ATAP presentation, these are kind of weird future focused products, but we're seeing, today practical applications for things like, tracing your finger on your jacket to do something, or in the case of Android M, approaching how we do things with security and notifications and stuff like that. I think is by far the most fascinating, because it's these weird, small, tedious things that we deal with as technology enthusiasts that don't always cross over very well to people who aren't very technically minded.
Right. And what did you think about the security stuff they talked about after the Project Jacquard, the Project Vault? It was a better way of better authentication than passwords. What did either one of you have to think about that?
I thought Project Vault was really promising for a couple of reasons. The first is that it gives another justification for using the micro SD card slot on devices that do. Not so much for expandable storage, but to have that kind of physical encryption on your device is an important part of personal security that we try kind of hard not to address sometimes in the technology community. But because of its design, it can also be moved to the iPhone or to even something like a Chromebook or a laptop, just by using simple expansion tools. By using a micro SD card to SD card exchanger, or something that plugs into the Lightning port on the iPhone, you can still move that security from device to device. It's not locked to a single platform.
Right. And so lastly, they
I totally agree.
Go ahead, Christina.
I was just going to say I agreed. No, I was just going to say I agreed. Go on.
Yes, Pat, we need something better than passwords. I think everybody agrees with that. We're all tired of that. So Project Ara was the last thing that they talked about. And it was interesting. I mean, they've talked about this before. We've seen it. We've seen the modular cell phone. It's really interesting. You can click out the camera, put it in, and then they showed it to us again. But I mean, what did you guys think? Going back to your point earlier, Christina, about when are we actually going to see this? They didn't really make an announcement about when, anything specific, except showing us this cool thing again.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's a great demo. It's a fantastic demo. And at a conference like this, especially when they are so developer-centric, which honestly I think is, I understand some people criticizing that. I feel like, no, but this is for developers. That's for who the audience is. And you can argue that maybe the keynote should be more focused around digestible consumer-facing things. But like, that's what we're here for. That's our job as journalists, is to break all this stuff down. So I think that for this sort of conference, having that sort of demo is fantastic. But I can't help, when I look at Project Era, as cool as it is, I can't help but think, okay, A, when is this actually going to be on the market? And B, is anybody in a sizable group of people actually going to be interested in using this to have the scale necessary to actually keep these modules available? Because at the end of the day, it's cool that you can do this. I just don't know how likely it is that we'll ever actually see it in the public. And the fact that they didn't announce anything about it, they're just showing more things. It concerns me that it's more vaporware than anything else. I'd also have to say that the size of the battery was like laughably small when the final demo, when they were showing that off. My first thought, I was like, oh my god, that must be like, that's these days most phones are made up almost completely of the battery, and this is just a tiny little cell. But it's still very cool stuff.
Right. What did you think, Russell, about Project Ara?
Well, I've been fascinated by Ara for a while, but it is true that we keep seeing lots of little advancements, and unfortunately, when you're dealing with something as complicated as this, little advancements are a whole lot bigger deal for the company to pull off. I think we did hear back in January about an intent to launch a pilot program for Ara in Puerto Rico, and their whole target has been the kind of smaller smartphone markets, not necessarily a larger scale, because we're not going to be able to put a Snapdragon 810 processor in a 4,000 milliamp hour battery in this thing and have it maintain its form factor. These are going to be kind of clunky, simple devices at first, but I do think we will see them, and probably not until right around this time next year.
Well, Russell, thank you so much. Russell Hawley is from Android Central. You can read his work there and follow him on Twitter at Russell Hawley. Thanks so much for joining us, Russell.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. But right now, we will talk to Owen Williams, who is from the Next Web. And I think we have him all the way from Amsterdam. Owen, are you there?
Hello from Europe. How are you?
I am great. Is it tomorrow there too? I get the time.
It's not the future here. It's it's like later in the day, I guess, but less confusing than New Zealand.
Right. Yeah. We talk to you the next day. So we wanted to talk to you about Google Photos. You've been playing with it, and what do you think so far?
I think it's actually really great. So when they announced it, I was like, oh, this looks really similar to what Apple's been doing with their photo thing. But after playing with it a bit more, I'm like, oh my God, I can actually search for the randomest stuff and Google actually finds it in my photos. I literally, like just before when you were talking, searched for pizza in my photos and all these pictures of pizza came up and it got really depressing and I got hungry. So like stuff like that is really cool. So it's like, and it kind of brings up these moments that you might have forgotten about from a couple of years ago, right? Like, it brought up like my trip to the US last year when I went to Seattle, and it brought up my trip to Vancouver one time. And I was like, wow, this is really cool that it can pull out random moments that you wouldn't necessarily remember when you've got 50,000 photos. It's pretty crazy.
It is. I tried it. I am a huge Google Photos fan. I use Picasa since its inception. So all of many of my photos are in there. So I was trying it out. I searched for dog. It found many pictures of my dog, but also some pictures I had taken of some baby pigs that I saw. So I've been testing it. And then I searched for cat, and it found, I don't actually have any pictures of cats. I'm allergic to cats. But it did find, it showed some pictures of my dog, a guinea pig, and one of my sons wrapped up in a furry blanket. So
interesting.
We are still smarter than Google Photos.
Right, yeah, and it's better than what Flickr's been doing, right? Because Flickr had that huge drama where they did the auto tagging and then it was doing like really inappropriate stuff. So right. Google's done way better in that regard, which is nice. Yes. I like that.
Yeah. And so what about from a privacy perspective? I know you were just, I think it was you that I just saw some tweets going back and forth that in the EULA, they say they can use your photos for advertising.
Yeah, so we were having a little debate about this. I rescind my my argument about it a little bit. So the terms and conditions say, I think it's fairly normal that Google can use the photos that you upload for basically like replicating to servers around the world and for promotional kind of purposes. But I mean, can you imagine if Google actually used anyone's photos in real life? I think that would be a nightmare for them. And Flickr has the same terms. Apple has somewhat similar terms. They say if you put anything public on iCloud Photo Library, they can use it then, which is weird. But I think, yes, it's a legitimate concern because the product is free. Like you're giving Google your photos for free, but I don't think they're going to advertise with it. I think that they're more teaching the algorithms stuff with your photos as opposed to actually looking at them. It's more about data crunching.
Right. I mean, and that always has been the case with Flickr. I mean, since it's been around, and you always see people using other people's pictures they found on Flickr, if they're in the public domain. So
yeah, all the time. It's just, I mean, everybody, you're going to get scaremongering when something's for free. Like people are always looking for a reason to bag on it, right? Like Google is probably one of the only companies that can legitimately offer it for free. They're trying to lock you into their ecosystem in a very compelling way that nobody else really offers. Like iCloud Photo Library is not free at all. You get 5 gigabytes, which is nothing. But it's so Google's sell is really like getting people into their ecosystem that way.
Well, one thing I forgot to mention last night when I was talking about how excited I was, we said it was unlimited storage, but you can only actually store images at up to 16 megapixels,
yes.
Which that's fine for most smartphone cameras. But for people who are real photographers, they're probably going to have bigger pictures. But then you can use your 15 gigabytes of storage that comes with your Google account to store the larger photos, right?
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, actually. I thought, I was kind of, annoyed at first, 16 megapixels. But when you think about it, most people are just going to jam every smartphone photo they have in there and not. Most people don't have a DSLR. And the fact that you can I think I saw it was $10 a month, and you can upgrade to a terabyte. I mean, that's if you're really a pro, you can manage that. $10 a month is really not that much if you're trying to store a terabyte of photos. I think you can't complain.
Right.
And it takes raw files as well, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. And so there's also a feature, I guess, where you can clean up duplicates of photos. That's a huge problem I have, especially when you used to just download and then, I have tons of duplicates. Have you used that feature yet?
Yeah, it seems to work pretty well. What I want is like the feature from Dropbox that lets you so many screenshots of the randomest stuff, and often like pocket screenshots, and just it's crazy. So you don't want those mixed in with your photos, right? If it was possible to remove them completely, that'd be nice. Like duplicates, it's fine. You get a few every now and then, but screenshots is like the thing that really bothers me.
Right. Well, what do you think, Christina? Have you used Google Photos yet?
I've used it a little bit. I haven't had a chance to really go in depth with it, but no, I kind of agree with Owen's assessment. So far, it seems really good. What's confusing to me is the branding. All these companies are using just like the plain Photos name. You've got Apple Photos, Amazon Photos, Microsoft Photos, Google Photos. Like it's totally confusing. No, but I think it's a good offering. I agree that the privacy stuff I think is a little bit overblown. Obviously, they can use the stuff, but I think it's a lot more about the fact that they are using their algorithms to go through all these photos to get better at image recognition. That's really what they're getting out of this. And then they can obviously advertise to you better. If they see that you have lots of photos of dogs, then maybe you want to see some pet-related things. I'm with you on kind of the screenshot thing, although I'm one of those weird people who I've taken so many screenshots over the years. I kind of like to keep them for historical purposes.
Right. Yeah.
So I would like them separated from my regular photos, but I would still like them to be like in their own category someplace.
And a filter would be nice.
But no. Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of apps on iOS that will kind of do that. But yeah, I mean, having them like in their own distinct place would be good. I know on Android, usually when you take a screenshot, it'll create an album called Screenshots. But if it could do the same thing where if you're uploading all sorts of photos, that'll be interesting to see. I'm also interested to see how it handles bulk uploads because that's something that Apple Photos has certainly struggled with. People migrating libraries from iPhoto and Aperture over have run into some bottlenecks. Google tends to be a lot better with that stuff, but I think that'll be an interesting thing to see is how does that sort of experience stack up, especially if you've got a decade or more worth of digital photos, not to mention anything you've scanned in. So no, I mean, I think that it's, but it's certainly going to be a compelling offering. From yesterday's announcements, I certainly thought it was the biggest news. Today, there's been a lot more kind of fancy and shiny stuff, but it certainly was kind of the surprise breakout of I/O for me so far.
It's interesting that you said that thing about what happens when you put so many photos in, because that's been one of my complaints about iCloud Photo Library.
Yes.
Is I did the unthinkable and put like 150,000 in there, which is insane.
This is so dumb. So dumb.
Really
we were
dumb
both so dumb, Owen. We were so dumb.
I know, it's crazy. We were just like, let's go all in. Let's just do it.
Let's do it. Let's trust the cloud. No, don't trust the cloud. Not with that many photos. Don't trust the cloud, audience. Do not trust the cloud.
Damn it. No, so my phone runs so slow now. When I go to Twitter or Instagram and I go to the photo picker, I don't have all the photos on my phone because they wouldn't fit. But I go to the photo picker and it locks up the whole phone. And I'm like, why did I do this? This was so dumb, and there's no way to fix it.
No, there's no way to fix it. I ran into the same thing, and I have a 128 gigabyte iPhone 6. So even on that, it's like running lower on storage space because it'll take up as much as you'll let it. I'm like, but I don't want this. And I even asked Apple about that when I was beta testing it. I was like, okay, but my iPad now is super slow. My iPhone's okay, but my iPad is super slow. How do I get this to turn it off? And their advice was like, well, you can just turn off iPhoto Library or iCloud Photo Library on that device. And that'll remove all that stuff. I'm like, okay, well, that ruins half the whole point. But thanks a lot, Apple. So from your experience, Google Photos has not had those issues, I guess, because it's not storing little snippets or smaller thumbnails locally on the device. So you found it fast on mobile?
It seems fast so far, but I probably haven't shoved enough photos into it to upset it yet.
Okay.
Like, I want to start putting rollers in there. And
I was going to say, you need to commit suicide on your phone a second time. We need to do a phone suicide again.
For the sake of it.
We're also getting
for science, right?
Yeah, for science.
We're also getting some advice from our chat room who suggests both of you should upgrade to an Android phone.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll think about it.
But it is true.
No,
I mean,
I got the Apple Watch. I can't.
right, you're right. You can't
Yeah.
yet. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of speed, I found it to be pretty fast when I uploaded mine, and especially compared to iCloud. And, you know, there's been other offerings. A few months ago, Amazon said that you could upload unlimited photos if you were a Prime member. And that's what I tried to do for my mom. And literally, like, it's probably 4 or 5 years of pictures. And it said, you know, this will take 769 hours. And so, you know,
You're like, nope.
it's like one of those things that Amazon, yes, like, you know, as long as you can wait, we'll give it to you, you know. So, yeah, we'll see, but I like it so far.
Yeah, good.
Owen, are you working on anything else that you could talk about?
Nothing exciting. I'm doing a little review of actually these cool little Internet of Things. I can actually show you something for once. These things are really cool. They're like you probably didn't expect me to actually say yes. They have a temperature sensor in them, air quality and everything, and they see it's gone red because something's wrong.
It's camera
That's
shy.
pretty cool. Yeah, it's camera shy. So I'm working on something about that for next week, which is pretty cool.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much, Owen. Owen writes for the Next Web. He is at OW on Twitter, has an excellent newsletter called Charged. I'm sure you can find that. You probably have a link from Twitter to that newsletter, right?
It's on my Twitter.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Owen.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. So, Christina, you had a great roundup of everything that happened yesterday at the keynote. We've talked about some of the stuff. What we haven't talked about today, which I wanted to get your opinion on, is Google Now. Can you explain what they announced yesterday and how that would work?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, Google Now is going to kind of be everywhere. And they've got this kind of ability to take everything that they've been building with Google Now and build, I think they're calling it Tap, where you can, invoke it in other apps and in other experiences. So they were showing off, you can be in Spotify and ask a question and get a response based on what's happening contextually within Spotify. That's really kind of mind-blowing next-gen stuff, which we like to see from Google, and which, frankly, I kind of was worried that they'd shifted maybe a little bit too far astray in the last couple of years. I was really impressed. I've been one of those people who's been sort of hesitant about Google Now, just because I know it's the future and I know I'll eventually be comfortable with it, but I feel like, at least at first, they were pushing it on us too quickly. And my argument has always been, look, I know that I will eventually give in to the Borg. I'm not stupid. I know that I will give in. But you've got to give me baby steps, because I've got to feel like this is something that I want. There's a difference between being like anticipating and just like being creepy. There's a really thin line between like kind of serendipity and creep. But I feel like some of this new stuff is certainly going more towards that serendipity sort of role and being a real utility, and kind of showing that the Google's core mission of search is something that they're really still working on improving and creating new paradigms for.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we talked about that a lot. There's that moment where like, wow, how does it know that I wanted to do that? And then that slowly does go right into that. Like, why do I want it to know all that about me? I'm not so sure. So the Wall Street Journal reports that Amazon is getting into the food business. They'll soon develop store brand labeled foods like milk, cereal, baby food, and more. When I was growing up, yeah, I know those. I don't know if you remember those white labeled generic grocery store foods.
Yes, I do.
They were
the Kroger
good
brand stuff,
right? But now go ahead.
Now they're pretty good. I was going to say, now they're pretty good. In fact, I've seen things. It's kind of like there's a whole industry for generic foods, and a lot of times they're made in the same factories and by the same brands that make the real stuff. It kind of depends. Like the Costco brand vodka, fun fact, is Grey Goose.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I thought I was drinking the cheap stuff.
I don't know. Right? I mean, I was like, I buy. So if you're a vodka person, go to Costco. But no, I mean, I think that this makes total sense for them. I mean, they've already got their Amazon house brand for cables and USB sticks and cases. Why not have Amazon branded, toilet paper?
Well, they had the diapers, and then they had to be discontinued.
Yeah, that's right.
They didn't work. So
that's true. They didn't work, right? It'll be interesting to see if they do this in-house or if they just do what most of the other store brands do, which is to go to one of these huge conglomerates who are making all of these things and are just white labeling them.
Right. And I couldn't help but think, like, could they start doing this with books? It's just like the store brand of Hemingway.
The store publisher. You know what? For certain like public domain stuff, they probably could.
Yeah. I hope they don't. So let's talk about a story you posted this morning on Mashable. Facebook gets, I say GIF. Do you say GIF? I don't know. I'm going to say what you say.
I do. I say GIF, but if you want to say GIF, I'm okay. I know that I'm a demon devil's child for saying GIF, but I'll say whatever way you want.
Okay. Well, tell us about this amazing new thing that we can do in Facebook.
I'm so excited. No, so GIF support has finally come to Facebook, or actually come back to Facebook. It was there like a decade ago, and then they got rid of it. And then Jiffy sort of did a hack a couple of years ago. We were all excited. We were like, oh, GIFs are on Facebook. And we were like, just kidding. Not really. So this is how it works. There are, as with all good things, there are some caveats. But basically, if you have an image URL that includes a GIF, like the GIF URL, you can paste that into a status update on Facebook, and the GIF will be displayed inline. It works both on the desktop and on mobile. If you want to upload a GIF image, that doesn't work. But if it's hosted someplace else, like Tumblr or Jiffy or Imager or something else, as you can see, there's Adore Delano from RuPaul's Drag Race season 6 saying "party," and that'll show up. It works on mobile. It works on the desktop. It does not work on brand pages. So I'm sure that'll come eventually. But if you wanted to post like to the Twit page, or if we were trying to post to the Mashable page, a GIF, it still doesn't work. So the branded apocalypse of GIFdom has not hit us yet. I know it will. No, but this is big news. I mean, so many other services have supported GIFs for so long. Google Plus has had it for years. Tumblr. Twitter added support.
Slack.
I think late last year. Yeah, Slack. Everybody has it. It's about time for Slack, exactly. HipChat. It's about time for Facebook to get back on the ball. No, I mean, I was super excited to kind of see how well it worked. Sometimes the GIF won't show up in the preview, but as long as the URL ends in .gif, it will display and inline. Some people, I saw some comments that you need Flash for it to work on the desktop. That makes sense. What they're probably doing on the back end is converting it into kind of like a more of a movie file to display more quickly. But on mobile, it'll actually, if you're using the latest version, it'll show you a little GIF icon on the graphic, and you can touch it to load it if it's too large or something else while you're scrolling through, kind of like the way their videos work now. So I mean, so far it's new, but it works pretty well, and I'm super, super, super excited that I can now share my my Harry Styles, Taylor Swift, and Britney Spears GIFs with the entire world, which is basically what I did this morning as I was testing it out.
Yeah, you really do the hard stuff. So I know you have to go. Do you have a few more minutes for more stories, or do you have to go?
No, I have a couple more minutes. Okay. I can stick around.
Excellent. So earlier this week, Mike reported an iOS bug that would crash messages if someone sent you a very specific string of characters. And this same bug apparently appears in Twitter DMs and Snapchat texts. You guys at Mashable say you can use Siri to get around the bug.
Yeah. That's Apple's saying. That's what Apple's saying. Yeah, I've heard that this works. I've also heard just having people send you good text over and over again will kind of get it to disappear off your stream. But apparently you can say, Siri, respond to a text, and then you can go through and delete to reopen messages.
Yeah, so first you have to read it, and then before you can delete it. Okay.
Exactly. Because it needs to be in the unread state, I guess, so that you can delete it. But I mean, this, I have to say, like, is terrible but hilarious, and no one has sent it to me yet. I'm so shocked that no one has sent me this text message. I'm probably opening myself up for you. I am. I was going to say I'm opening myself up for it, and to have restart a go. But it's I mean, of all the things, apparently this has been around for a while. But Apple, I'm sure that they are furiously trying to figure out how to fix this for everyone. I'll actually be interested to see if they end up doing any sort of backporting updates for previous version of iOS. I doubt it, but that would be interesting to see. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Apple now has a page. Siri, who knew Siri could actually be useful?
Right, she is very helpful. Yeah, it's interesting that you can have a lot of good texts come. It's sort of like if someone says something nasty about you, you can erase it by like having lots of people say nice things about you. Works in real life. So
yeah, exactly. It works. It's like, just send me the love. No, yeah, it's good stuff.
So TechCrunch reports that standalone messaging app Path was sold yesterday to Dom Cacao. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I know you have a photographic memory, so you probably know if I'm pronouncing that right. But Path Places was not sold. Are you a Path fan?
That's weird. I guess I still technically have an account. I mean, didn't we all? It used to have a really great interface. I mean, I like, remember when it was supposed to be just your 25 closest friends, and then they were like, just your 150 closest friends. And they were like, okay, just everybody. Somebody just buy us, please. And now someone has, except for Path Places. So it's, it's now going to be this, I guess, Asian company where the messaging thing and the stickers were super popular will take over it, and Path Talk will be a thing. I'm not really sure why. I mean, I'm assuming they didn't acquire Path Places mostly because they're like, well, we don't need this. But I don't know. I've never used Path Places. Have you? I've never used it.
I haven't, no. And neither have I used Kong, but I'd be surprised if you haven't used Kong, the one that would turn your selfie into a GIF.
Yeah, I've used Kong. Yeah, I use Kong, which is pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty decent app. There are a couple of other like kind of camera app things like that too, that'll kind of do that sort of thing. So Kong, I mean, that was kind of like their last ditch effort thing. Like, please buy us, please somebody buy us. And hey, Dave, you got your exit. Way to go.
So CTV,
that came out a lot more sarcastic than I meant. Genuinely, congratulations, Dave.
CTV News in Canada reports that a man got a ticket for using his Apple Watch while driving. He says he was only using it to adjust the volume on his radio, and he didn't know that it was illegal, and he plans to fight the $120 fine. What's your policy on using your watch behind the wheel?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so disclosure, I don't drive.
I was going to ask that. You're in New York City. You probably don't drive, but...
I'm in New York City. I don't drive, and I don't even have a driver's license right now. But B, I mean, honestly, I think that like they have like a lot of the turn-by-turn direction things are even designed to work while driving, so it'll vibrate on your wrist when you know to turn. I don't know how a watch is any more distracting than the in-dash entertainment system.
Right,
would be
especially,
my,
when he was turning the volume up.
Exactly. A phone I completely understand because, you've got two hands, you're taking away, you've got to be focused on reading things. But a watch is very glanceable. I think you should fight this because it seems a little ridiculous. The screen is small enough. He's trying to control the volume. I mean, what's next? I mean, genuinely, like what's the difference between having a smartwatch, an Apple Watch, versus a regular watch that maybe had Bluetooth in it or something? To me it seems silly. To me it seems like this is going too far. I totally understand banning phones at the wheel and making hands-free be a necessity, but especially since Apple Watch has things built in so that you can control stuff with Siri, that's good. I mean, maybe that's the next step, is that you should be able to turn the volume up, just saying, hey Siri, turn the volume up, kind of like you can with Alexa on the Amazon Echo. Maybe they should build that into the Apple Watch. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. The volume thing is, I don't know if you've had this. Did you do your Apple Watch update yet?
I did, yes.
I had noticed that you used to be able to use the Digital Crown and the Now Playing app for anything, whatever you were playing, and you could use a Digital Crown. But since the update, I haven't been able to do that. I don't know. This is
same. So I don't know if they just changed things or what the deal is.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's been the case.
I know. I mean, I drive a lot, and it is, it's not, I don't think it's that bad to do that. And it is nice because it turns on and I can just see if there's a text. And like you said, the turn-by-turn driving was really helpful, because you don't have to look at anything. It taps you when you have to turn, which I found that's actually safer for driving. But the people that are like, I'm going to respond to my text, and you can't type into it, but you can scroll through and find the response. And I don't think that is what you need to be doing while you're driving necessarily.
No, I agree. I mean, and that would actually be an interesting question for Apple. I wonder if they could figure out, well, I mean, I guess then it would be different. I was going to say if you could figure out if you're in certain motion, like disable the text messaging aspect, but then how do you tell who's driving versus who's just sitting in a car or on a train? Right. I mean, I think that there are obviously edge cases, but I think that it seems odd to, I think because it's so new, it's being targeted, but we'll figure these things out. Again, I don't know how much worse these things are than, these in-car, Apple Play or CarPlay, Android Auto, the other various, Ford Sync, how those systems are that demonstrably different than what you have in a smartwatch. And that's usually a big screen in the center of your console, which certainly can take your attention away. I don't know.
Right. Well, Jason, our producer, just told me that legally what they got him on, he has a legal background or a police background. So he said it was using a phone device. Since there's a phone in your watch, then you're using a phone and while you're driving. So that's the legal aspect of it. So
okay.
You,
well, okay, but it's Bluetooth. It's thank you, Jason. But okay, I guess because it has a radio. Okay, cool.
Yeah. it'll be interesting. And this will be the first of many cases, I'm sure. So in news you can use, Engadget reports that MIT's highly efficient cheetah robots can now jump over hurdles while running. The four-legged automaton uses 2D lasers to detect obstacles and leap over them. And did I mention they were running and probably after you? Super scary.
Oh, this is so scary. I mean, this is amazing, but this literally looks like my nightmares. This looks like, the 28 days later. Like, this is really ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't even jump over hurdles. That was something I never could do when back in my track days. And it's also scary that it doesn't really have a head.
Right, that's the part that freaks me out. I'm like, this looks like something out of Resident Evil. But that's kind of impressive. That's still very impressive. I mean, the movement is certainly really cool. That's actually, I think, the most interesting thing is the way that they really seem to have kind of the movement down. That's awesome. And yeah, like you, I certainly can't do hurdles. So way to go, robot cheetah overlords.
Right. If you have opinions about the cheetah overlords, if you think they're coming, you can send email to tn2@twit.tv. Our TNT fan of the day is Sean Streitmatter, who posted this photo on Twitter. He says, "This is how I watch TNT on one screen. And yes, that is Meerkat on the second screen."
Nice.
I'm okay with that multitasking as long as he's not driving. If he took those two monitors with him and was driving, then, checking his Apple Watch.
That would be a problem. That'd be a problem.
Right. Show us how you watch or listen to TNT. You can record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it to Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag #HowIWatchTNT and we will find it. Christina Warren, thank you so much for joining us. Anything new you're working on that you can tell us about?
Well, I finished up, I reviewed the Pebble Time this week, so that review is up on Mashable if anybody wants to read that. I kind of compared it vis-a-vis the kind of the latest things happening in wearables. And about to go record our kind of bargaining. We're still kind of doing a pilot for a podcast for Mashable. We're about to record an episode, so that's just kind of what's going on in my world.
Cool. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you, Megan.
Take care. You can subscribe to Tech News Today on Spotify, Deezer, Stitcher, iTunes, YouTube, Feedly, Yahoo, TuneIn, RSS, or so many other options. Please leave a review. Let us know how you like the show and choose your favorite way to subscribe at twit.tv/TNT. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv. And if you're ever in the Bay Area, come on in and watch us as part of our studio audience. You can do that just by sending emails to tickets@twit.tv. And follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. And if you haven't gotten enough of me already, don't miss Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific and every weeknight. Tonight we will wrap up everything else that was announced at Google I/O today with Engadget's Roberto Baldwin. This show was produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Brian Burnett. My name is Megan Morrone. Thanks for tuning in. Mike will be back on Monday.